What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. As we all know, League of Legends is changing pretty consistently, and on the League of Legends forums, writers are always posting about stuff that's coming next, and there's always some bits and teasers about some upcoming changes for the future. So in today's video, I wanted to take another look at some upcoming changes to League of Legends that you can expect to see in the near future. So with that being said, if you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. So starting us off, we've got a few balance changes that are probably going to land in patch 9.7. One of the most prominent ones is likely to be a Lissandra nerf, mainly aimed at the pro player power, especially since she's become very dominant and maybe a little bit too reliable at the pro level of play. Next up, there's also going to be a Morgana assessment, more particularly her performance in the mid lane. They said that they were actually planning on shipping out nerfs in patch 9.6 for Morgana, but decided against it because they weren't really certain enough if the nerfs were actually needed. So they're going to assess her again though, and if they decide it to be the right call, we'll definitely see some Morgana nerfs in patch 9.7. There's also a nerf to Dark Seal coming, which is currently actually filling both the safe early game sustain and as well the supposedly risky snowball design that it's intended for. And this double-edged sword is causing it to be just way too overpowered, and as a result kind of makes up for its weaknesses in a sense, so they're going to nerf it in a way that probably includes a lower sellback value, so as a result it will increase its kind of risk-reward situation. On another note, they're actually going to also experiment a little bit with Wit's End and aim at making it a much more relevant item than it is now. However, Riot said that they're a little bit 50-50 on whether or not they'll actually ship something at all with Wit's End or if they're going to hold back. At the very least, we're guaranteed to see changes hit the PBE for testing at least. Next up, we've got some changes coming to Spell Thieves and Ancient Coin. So lots of people are asking for an update, and the hotfix that they originally put into place for these items was more so just kind of a band-aid solution for the time being. Nothing was mentioned or changed since, however, and the current changes feel pretty awful as a support player. Riot's response, however, wasn't that pleasing, and they stated that nothing is entirely likely in the short term, but they've been testing different directions, including things such as reduced gold from minion kills when you have a support item. However, they quickly said that this concept comes with its own set of problems, which is why they're holding back on the idea. However, they have promised changes one way or another. They're just taking a little bit of extra time to figure out something that will be a great long-term solution for these items. Up next is something pretty exciting actually, and it's the Wukong mini update that's finally going to be coming. So some gameplay work on Wukong has been underway for quite a long time now actually, and it's not on the scale of a full rework, you know, kind of just like one of those little mini updates. Maybe he'll get some tweaks to his abilities and mechanics here and there. And the writers working on Wukong mentioned that they have changes that are showing promises in internal testing. The best part, however, is we have a full analysis on the direction, which will change his style. So based on the information that was given, I'm leaning towards Wukong actually probably receiving some pretty big changes in the future rather than just a couple minor tweaks. Essentially, Riot has mentioned that they're going to be taking him in the direction of being a much more significant bruiser champion alongside being like a trickster, which is a really interesting design, and I think it's probably the best direction that they could take with him. He'll lose some of his burst damage, which was maybe a little bit prominent on how people used to play Wukong, but Riot said that the new changes are leading him to have a much healthier playstyle than before and overall feels a lot better in the game. However, Riot said themselves they're prepared for the harsh feedback that will relate to their decisions of dropping burst damage, and that some Wukong players will maybe be unhappy as the playstyle does change. To compensate, Riot said they're looking into trying to balance his ratios in a way that will hopefully satisfy the players that might not like this direction for Wukong. On the flip side, he's also going to receive some new VFX where required, but is unlikely to change any of his current VFX where gameplay functionality is still the same. There's no official date as to when this Wukong update is going to hit the PBE, but the next step for Riot is running the changes past some Wukong players who are non-Rioters and taking their feedback after a testing session that they do in their offices. They'll select a random range of players from various skill levels and all that good stuff. They'll probably get some pro players in there too. I know quite a few pro players have done similar testing sessions that they visit the Riot office and kind of test new characters before they get released. Happens all the time. So hopefully they can get some good feedback and overall result in making a pretty nice champion. It's going to be exciting to see how this one plays out, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying out the new Wukong in the future. Next up, we've got some buffs for Aatrox actually. He'll be receiving some work soon, and it'll actually be a much larger balance change or a bunch of smaller ones that will create a large functionality change. However, there's no specifics exactly as to what they're going to change with him, but hopefully it gives something for you Aatrox players to look forward to. Another huge thing coming up is that support items in general are going to be getting a pretty significant overhaul. Different items are going to get various changes. Small to moderate sized support items might get completely reworked during the year. Large overhauls are probably going to be more of a preseason thing if they decide to do this in the preseason. The thing is, in terms of the overall state of support income and support items, it's still around the highest gold amount it's ever been, and the gold cost of vision for supports is actually the lowest it's ever been in League of Legends too, meaning that in general supports are in a good spot, but they do want to rework the effectiveness or maybe the impact, especially when it comes to the items that they'll have in the game. This is one that's probably not going to happen for a while though. It's just something that they're kind of working on in the background. I wouldn't expect to see any changes, major changes to the support item overhaul for at least a few more patches probably. Now next up, we're going to dive into a couple other changes that Riot has been thinking about. Now these are ones that are not entirely likely to happen like the rest of the changes in this video, but I think it's worth talking about since it is changes that Riot are planning or at least thinking about. So one champion they've been discussing a little bit is Swain, and they're not entirely sure what to do with him, but they did say that they're not too far off, but they do believe there could be some room to add a little bit of power into his kit, so maybe some buffs, and they'll be talking about him in their planning meeting for patch 9.7. Another change might actually be coming to the Zephyr item. Riot mentioned that it's not really standing up to the ideas that they wanted for it, and it's not proving itself to be doing what they intended it to be used for. It was a popular item, but resulted in a pretty degenerate style of gameplay. It let players use it as a strong lane counter, but also as like an all-purpose late game item without any sort of significant trade-off. Riot's actually iceboxed an experimental take on an on-hit item that stacked both armor and MR on the attacker. However, they had a huge concern on how strong and safe an item like this would be for something that would allow you to counter whichever lane you use it against. So instead they're looking to maybe change Wit's End instead as a compensation, instead of taking the risk to add something that might just throw off the entire game balance, but it's definitely something that they might bring back in the future. Another thing that's kind of random but could be exciting for especially for new players is possible changes to the co-op vs AI game mode. So Riot Meddler did mention that it might be possible to improve the game mode someday, even though it's not confirmed, and if it were to come, it would be in the far future. Riot did say that they had some interest in making it better and understand where things could be improved, but it's just that it would take a lot of manpower and development time, as it does require quite a lot of engineers to make AI better, especially in a game as complex as League of Legends, and it would take developers away from a lot of probably more important projects. Engineers tend to be Riot's biggest bottleneck in development, so they stretch them pretty thin for now, so unfortunately the idea is going to be on hold, but it is something they're hoping to do eventually at least. We may also see some man-immune changes in the future, although Riot stated that they have no clear direction on what they're going to do here. We know for sure that they are at least talking about making something happen and changing the item a little bit. It's apparently likely that it'll become a unique choice with Archangels and Seraph's Embrace though, the idea being that you can only ever have one of the two Tear of the Goddess items at once, meaning that they'll never balance, meaning that they won't have to balance in the future of the idea of a champion having both items. Last but not least, Riot's also been talking a little bit about removing Ohmwrecker from the game. The thing is, Riot believes that Wit's End is getting closer and closer to being fully stable and a very useful item. Ohmwrecker, on the other hand, is only filling a very specific niche that, quite honestly, doesn't really need to exist in the game. And the thing about Ohmwrecker is that if it got stronger to the point where it was actually usable, it would be really unhealthy for the game, which leaves it in this odd spot of just kind of being a weak item that they just can't really buff because of the mechanics. So they're not really too sure what they're going to do with it. So they actually mentioned that the only reason that they haven't removed this item already was because the name they have to keep in the game, because it was a recruit a friend reward for the YouTuber Ohmwrecker way back in the day. He got like 10,000 referrals for League of Legends or something like that. So they're not too sure what they're going to do with it. They're hoping to maybe move the name to a new item, or perhaps just scrap the item altogether and try to find a different place in the game to put the name. They're not really sure, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see what Riot does with it. Now with that being said, that's just about going to sum up the video for today. If you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. Hit the notification button, press all the buttons. You know how it is. Definitely let us know in the comments section which change you are maybe the most excited about in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.